Hi, welcome back to the workshop. Today I'll be cutting some four-sided tapered legs, and when we're cutting tapers at the table saw, it's pretty easy to cut two sides of that taper because the opposite sides we have a flat reference surface, and if you start in the right way you can rotate it and have a flat reference surface on both the bottom and the fence of your tapering jig. But it's a little harder to cut a four-sided taper. So today I'm going to show you a very simple technique for using your standard tapering jig that you either have bought or that you made to accommodate the material that we're removing from one side. And as you continue to rotate that leg around, you're going to have to take up that slack some way or another to make sure that the piece is still oriented in the same way to the blade each time. So let me bring you in closer and I'll show you the jig that we have, and I'll take you through the process that I'm using to do a four-sided tapered leg. So what I have here is a basic tapering jig. It has a fence that the piece is going to register against, along with some clamps where I can clamp it down safely. And on my jig, I use T-track so that fence can slide in and out, and I can adjust the fence to get the correct taper. And the real key to a tapering jig like this is that after you build your platform and you create your runner, put this runner or the miter bar far enough in so that your first cut with this jig will show you exactly where the blade is going to be cutting. So if I put that miter bar too close to my platform, too close to the edge, as I run my platform through, it won't cut anything off the platform itself. But I do want that. I want to run this through the first time, and this is going to show me exactly where it's going to cut. And that is important because on the end of my leg here, I have drawn my four-sided taper. So I'm going to be taking about, I think it's just over 1/2 inch off all four sides. And I ran my lines all the way to the edge so that when I place this in the jig, I can just place a line right on the edge of my platform, and I know that's where the saw is going to cut. Okay, so all of that is just basic taper jig information there. Very common. The real key is that after I start taking off slivers, each time I rotate this, I have now changed how the piece is going to interact with the jig. And on that first cut, the only thing that has changed is just that my toggle clamps might not work anymore because I've taken material off and I've already adjusted these to be tight at this thickness, and now it won't be as thick. So you'll notice that each time I make a cut, I'm going to take the offcuts from each one to either slide in to adjust the thickness and my clamps still work, or I might slide it in the back as I continue to roll around to take up the space that has been cut away there. And eventually on that very last cut, as I make it all the way around, I'll need to take up both the space left on the back fence and the space left on the bottom, so that again that piece is still oriented the same way for that final cut. So let me show you how that works. And eventually this is the leg that we will have. It has a four-sided taper all the way around. And I've left just enough material so that the foot that's going to go on here is still tight. It'll just start to go on, but it won't go on the whole way. And this will allow me to either go to my jointer and take a pass or two off each side so that foot will go all the way on, or you can even do this with your hand plane as well. So let's get to tapering, and after each cut, we'll stop and take a look at what I need to do to accommodate for the material being taken away. Okay, so we've made our first cut, and now it's time to rotate to our next face. And it doesn't really matter which way you rotate, I guess. This same technique would accommodate going ahead and rotating it down first, and then I could use my wedge underneath. But I want to try to minimize the wedges that I'm having to use to make up that lost space as much as possible. So I found that if I rotate it inward after that first cut, be sure there's nothing, no debris in the way, so your piece registers against the fence securely. So if I rotate inward or up and over for that first one, I still have a flat reference surface on the bottom and a flat reference surface against the fence, or square, I might say. So I can go ahead, and I'm not cutting the very top up here where the apron of my table is going to go, so that clamp is going to work. But if I try to clamp these, it doesn't touch. And of course, that's because I've already cut away material. So on that first cut, all I really need to do is take the wedge that was cut off and kind of put it back in here. And you'll have to move it up some because of the thickness of the blade. And you can just find where it's tight. If it's not tight enough there, you can move it up a little. And that feels nice and tight. And that feels pretty good as well. So after that first cut, that's all I need to do is adjust for my clamps. And then I'm going to make another cut. Okay, so now we've made two cuts. I have two faces that are still square to the original leg and two that have been cut. And so the second time now that I rotate this leg is where I'm going to really start to encounter problems or challenges. So again, blow away any debris so that our piece can register correctly. I'm going to rotate up and over again, and remember up here at the apron is still going to remain square, and that's really important to pay attention to that piece that's going to be square throughout. You want to make sure this upper portion is square against the fence and the platform. So what I like to do is go ahead and clamp that first, knowing that I don't have to do anything special to that first clamp. And the only thing that we're going to have to make up this time is the gap left against the fence. My bottom of the leg, the way it's oriented now, is still square to the original leg, and it's resting flat on the platform. So any of these wedges are fine. You're just going to take it and slide that wedge in until it's nice and snug. Okay. And then again, my clamps won't work because I've already taken material off that face. So we can put a little spacer here. That's too loose. Slide it in. Making sure to push against the fence, against that wedge. Same thing on this clamp. A little loose. Okay, and then what I like to do now that I've started to kind of mess with how this piece is registering against the fence, I'm using that wedge, which isn't an exact science. This is where I really want to pay attention to those original marks I made on the bottom of the leg. So I still have that line running all the way down, and I can see right now I've positioned the wedge just perfectly so that this line is connecting to the edge of my platform. So I know that that blade is going to cut right here, right where I want it. And then I also know the blade's going to exit up here at the top of the leg where I want it, because the top of the leg isn't changing, and that can continue to register into the platform and the fence every time. So let's go ahead and make our third cut. Okay, almost to the promised land. So we've made 3 cuts now. So on this last cut, I'm going to have to make adjustments to both the platform side and the fence side to make sure that this leg is oriented properly in the jig. So the top ones are easy. They're just gaps for the clamp, so nothing special there. But one thing you want to do on this very last cut is, I know that that wedge against the fence has positioned my leg perfectly on the outside so that the blade cuts right on my line. So when I go to flip this, I really don't want to move that too much. I'm going to check it once I get it all clamped, just like the last time, to be sure it's right. But I don't want to let that just kind of fall out, because I've already done the work to get it where it needs to be, to take up just the right amount of space registering against my fence. So let's do that. So again, these two are just for clamping pressure. I'm going to take the leg out, and don't move this wedge here. It's already in the right spot. Kind of blow away any debris. And now when I rotate, half the work's already done for me. That wedge is already in place. I'm going to clamp at the top first again, because that's my square portion of the leg that isn't changing. So that's in position. And the only thing I have to do is under the bottom here, if I lift this up, you can see that bottom has been cut away already. So that's the only thing that I have to make up. And you can take any of your wedges just to slide under, but you just want to slide, again, keep sliding it forward until it gets kind of tight. And then I can get down and sight under this leg to make sure it hasn't changed the front or the top of my leg up at the up here. If I've pushed that wedge too far in, I'll see a gap under the platform up here. So I'm going to get down. That looks really good. And I can see that the leg is kind of touching my wedge there. I'm going to make sure I'm pushing against the fence. Clamp down. Clamp down. And now lastly, I'm just going to sight right down this line, and that looks really good. I can tell that this last cut, the blade's going to enter the leg right on that line. And I'm going to check one more time up here at the top to make sure the leg is sitting flat on the platform, and that looks good. So I think we're ready for our cut. Okay, so let's see how we did. I would say that we did pretty good. So a lot of woodworking is about work holding, being creative of how we can hold our work to move through a tool. I feel like that's most of the challenges I run into in fine woodworking, is figuring out how to move that workpiece through a tool to get the shapes that we need. So in this case, it's quite easy. Each cut is creating the wedges that we need, and all we have to do is keep putting those in place as we rotate that leg around, and we ended up with a nice four-sided taper. So I hope this was helpful for you. Maybe the next time you're creating a piece of furniture, you won't be intimidated by tapering those other two sides, and you can end up with a nice elegant leg such as that. I hope this tip was helpful for you and you can use this in your woodworking, and I will see you next time.